TIFU by Smeagoling at my new job. This happened today, about 20 minutes ago. To be more precise, I just started a new job about a month ago. It's a quiet office environment. I only really know the people immediately around me, but everyone's been super nice to me so far. One of the things I love about this place is they have a bunch of free breakfast stuff in the break room. This morning I thought a bagel sounded nice, so I went to go toast one up. This is where the FU begins. I separated the bagel into two halves and went to put it in the toaster. I've only ever owned peasant toasters, but this stainless steel bad boy had all the bells and whistles, including a bagel setting. I figured it wouldn't hurt, so I punched it and waited. While I stood there, my mind began to drift. I started thinking about Lord of the Rings for some reason, specifically trying to figure out when my kids would be old enough for me to introduce them to it. I heard the door to the break room shut and assumed the only person who had been in there with me had just left. Then the toaster dinged and my bagel popped up. I took it out and was struck by how amazingly it had toasted. Warm and soft on the outside, toasted perfection on the inside. I started spreading the butter, still admiring the flawless bagel in my hands. My brain was still in fantasy mode though, and I said to myself in full-on Smeagol voice, "Oh yes. We likes it. Gives it to us golden and crispy." At this point, my rational brain kicked back in and I realized how cheesecake weird I can be sometimes. Oh well, no big deal. I take my bagel and turn around, nearly running into a group of ladies looking at me like I just arrived from another planet. I tried to give a polite smile, but I'm sure the surprise and wave of awkwardness I was experiencing made that creepy too. I shuffled past them and am now hiding at my desk. I'm sure it's just a matter of time before the new guy is rebranded as the multiple personality weirdo who talks to himself. Banana. TL. Doctor talked like Smeagol while buttering my bagel and was overheard by my new co-workers. Instant shame. Only option now is to go full Smeagol, I'm afraid. You can never drop out of character as long as you work there. That was a joy to read. Thank you for effing up. Was it an everything Smeagol? Edit, thanks yous for the silvers my precious.
I didn't hunch over, but there may have been some widening of the ice. Voice-wise, yes, I went all in.
Well, you gotta come into the office on Halloween dressed as Smeagol now. No two ways about it. Carry a bagel around calling it my precious and ask about those dirty filthy hobbitses.
Bonus points because a bagel fits on a finger like a ring. If the coworkers get too weirded out, he can just slip the bagel on his finger and become invisible.
The more important question remains.
Don't think he knows about second breakfast, Pip. Red apple.
TIFU by going on my first date in years. So usual disclaimer, this happened last week, not today, but I've only just recovered enough to talk about it. Also for context, I am a detective with the police, which was on my profile. So I have been single a few months now and finally decided to give those Tinder style apps a go. I was recommended Bumble by a colleague, which is essentially just Tinder but bee themed. I downloaded the app Thursday and by Friday I had a date, so I thought things were going well. First date I arranged for Saturday at a busy shopping center. Now I've been out of the dating game for a while and we were chatting about movies, so we went to go to the cinema to see Mortal Engines. I knew the first greeting was always going to be awkward, the whole "hey is that X? You now have 1 second to decide on kiss on cheek, awkward hug or lame wave thing," but what happened was none of those things. Instead I get it with "tell me who you are, I need to verify you," which, not going to lie, is as romantic a greeting as smearing yourself with Marmite and announcing "let's have a toast for the pretty lady." Anyway, she then asks what's that on the floor, pointing to a large pile of dust. It's a pile of dust, I tell her, and she makes me double check. Dust confirmed. We move on to the cinema and purchase tickets. The announcer in my brain exclaims, "You are now locked into the date." We got an hour and a half till the movie, so we grab some ice cream, cause that's cute as butternut, and head to Starbucks, which FYI is a crowded motherflucker. Grab a table and she leans close. Zero chill, just deadpan asks me, "What's the darkest job you have ever dealt with?" Now I've got some HP Lovecraft dark stories, so I tried to give her a PG version of a double murder I had some involvement with. Note, everything I discussed could also be easily read about online. How did he kill them? Was there a lot of blood? Did you see IT? Was IT like the movies? I love murder stories. Have you seen Making a Murderer? Have you heard about X Murder? Did you know this one guy once chopped his mum's head off and had coconut with the corpse? Isn't that fascinating? Let me just remind you, it's as crowded as balls in leather pants in this coffee shop and people are looking over. She also hits me with a few probing questions. Have you ever committed a crime? Have you ever done drugs? Trying to recover some semblance of a date? I joke, haha, only if you count downloading Showbox as a crime. Next it's my turn to ask some questions and throw out the classic tell me about yourself. I know it's lame but I panicked. Oh, I've just been released from 18 months locked up in a psyche ward in Broadmoor. It was pretty much a DOS and I got to meet people like Naked Philip. Now gripped with what can only be described as the terror a double D-breasted woman feels in a slasher flick, I decide I have two choices. 1. Run into the crowd and disappear. 2. Continue date. What could go wrong in a cinema? It's just 2 hours of awkward silence. Let's just say I chose poorly. Before we move off though, she asks me to search her chair. I don't really do much except say it's fine, but after walking off she decides my efforts were not good enough and goes back to search it properly. Finally into the cinema now 10 minutes after start time, so it's adverts but most people have sat down. Of course there are people in our seat, what looks like a family of 14 parts like the Red Sea, so we can sit in the seats we paid for, but they are somewhat miffed. Suddenly my date whips out the flashlight on her phone and starts search the chair. The woman from the family is also some nutbar and starts yelling my eyes. Turn off that light. Arafif by Foy. My date sits down in darkness for a whole 5 minutes before deciding that she wants to have a round 2 of flashlight rodeo. You raging Snickers lady, I'm going to knock you out. I told you turn that light off. I'm not about to white knight defend this woman. I'm a god banana spectator here. The fruit and nut villain is eventually calmed down by her fella. Date goes for lucky number 3 flashlight gamble. This time I have to step in and say this is not okay. So movie time. I'm sure Mortal Engines is a fine film, but it's pretty out there and long. All I'm thinking about is the 3 pieces of advice I was given prior to app dating. 1. Don't get drunk. 2. Don't send banana pics. 3. Don't stick your banana in crazy. So despite the horror movie Mortal Engines has become I am still a man and she is still an attractive woman, so I'm repeating number 3, again and again in my head like a monk trying to achieve enlightenment. Lucky the date is so bad and my fear so palpable that logic wins out. After the movie she goes to the bathroom and hands me her coat and bag. Can't run yet. Got to wait. She returns dead serious, I need you to follow me. This is where I die, I think. I'm being lured to the bathroom to be filleted like a fish and used as a skin suit in some crazy banana game. She walks me to an isolated area and points at an especially large pile of dust. What's that? I say, just a large pile of dust. Are you sure? Can you check? Sure enough, it's just dust. So keen to make good my escape, I lay down a well look at the time. 8:30. Got to grab the train. She responds, you know I'm really thirsty. Could really go for a drink. Not willing to be the third party to a human centipede, I push on Central Line, that's me. Oh, you too? Great. Next she smashes out, hey, you know the overground train for me is an hour wait. I don't really want to wait an hour. So thirsty. The next stop I just decided the wrong station was the right place to be. Oh, look at this. Haha, my stop, lovely to meet you, bye. The journey home was the most paranoia-driven thriller of my 29 years. TLDR. My first date in years was with someone murder-obsessed and recently released from a mental health facility. Now too scared to date anyone ever again. Where do you live? That dust is such a huge problem.
The Big Smoke aka London, recently made famous by driving around eating smaller townships for reasons unknown to me as I wasn't paying attention to the movie.
The thing I took away the most from this is that even a hardened detective wants nothing to do with crazy. The women's wing of Broadmoor closed in 2007.
Done.
I'm sorry to have laughed at your banana night, but I found humor in how you wrote it up. One word of advice, take the fact that you are a detective off your bio if you decide to hop back in the game. And if I don't get a reply, I'll just assume she got you.
Yeah, I figured I would remove it. It's bound to come up early enough in conversation, but as long as I'm not attracting murder lovers it will be better. And I'm glad you got a laugh. I might not get lucky, but it's therapeutic turning my misery to humor.
Why the banana is there so much dust everywhere?
Vampires who left their watches at home.
TIFU by losing track of where my dog is. throwaway account, so I'ma get very pissed if this gets a lot of points. So I live with my family and my dog spends her nights in my room, which means walking her in the mornings is usually my responsibility. This morning, obligatory, this actually happened today, I went downstairs and opened the door to let the dog out first before putting on shoes and grabbing my keys, in case she was bursting to go. I got up quite late since I graduated high school and pretty much just lounge about helping out at home. She can do it outside rather than in the house. By the time I'd gotten ready though, the dog was nowhere to be seen. Now I wasn't too concerned since she can't get past the locked gate, so I knew she wasn't lost. After searching the garden, I figured she must have done what she needed to do, and snuck back in to get another nap in. She's a lazy pupper. I went back inside and, since the rest of the house was still asleep, or so I thought, I didn't want to yell for her, so I resorted to check each room. So the sleeping arrangements in my family is kind of unusual. I have a small sister who doesn't like to spend the night alone, so she chooses a parent to spend the night within the double bed, while the remaining parent is banished to her room with the twin-size bed. I get my own room. After checking the dog is not in mine or the small bedroom, I figured she'd gone to snuggle with my sister and dad in the big bedroom, so I went in to drag her out because I was determined to get my morning walk. I went, and it took me about 30 seconds to realize my mistake. The silhouette in the single bed had been way too small to be my mum. They must have gotten up, carried my sleeping sister to her own room. My mum snuck in with my dad, because there they were, on the double bed, going at it. Turns out 30 seconds wasn't fast enough to piece the story together, because just as I realized and panicked and tried to leave, my mum looks up and we make solid eye contact while I'm pretty sure my dad's coconut was still inside her. Not that I was keen to verify or think about it. I was catatonic at this point and my brain shut down, and I just turned on my heels and left, with a deadpan expression this whole time. My sister is no longer allowed to sleep in the big bedroom. And yes, turns out the dog was indeed in the room at the time. Doctor, let my dog slip into my parents' bedroom, went in to get her, broke my 18 years streak of managing to avoid catching my parents in the act of producing more siblings for me. Edit, let the records show that the first thing I did after getting TF out of that room was to check on my sister, who was awake by this time, and tell her to leave our parents alone for a while. I see this getting hella up votes. Rip up.
Added one myself to add insult to injury. D.
As I get older and am now a parent myself, that sleeping situation would put a hell of a strain on any relationship. Good on them for finding time to be together. That type of thing can easily lead to divorce and or infidelity. That said, sucks for you op.
Not gonna admit to having been worried about their banana life for a while now, though I totally have been, so all in all I'm happy for them. I think the worst part is we can't really just pretend it didn't happen, and it's not like those hilarious 5-year-old walks in on parents having butternut comedy ensues because the child doesn't know what's happening situations. I'm 18, I know what zucchini is, they know I know what zucchini is, I know they know I know what zucchini is, and it's just a very delicate situation. That being said, it's been a day and we're all just adamantly ignoring it ever happened.
Doors have locks for a reason.
I blame bad architecture for the deficiency of locks in our house.
Dogs are great, but it's kinda creepy how they know when you're banging and insist on watching.
Our cats sit on our night tables and just stare.
The solid eye contact part is the real killer. Oof, op.
I saw a part of my mom die in that moment and honestly, can relate.